Welcome back to Press Review. Let's start by taking a look at today's front pages in the Middle East. Starting with the Egypt Independent, which leads reporting that the Cairo Criminal Court is resuming the retrial of former President Hosni Mubarak, his Interior Minister Habib al-Adli and 6 former security officials over charges of murdering protesters during the 2011 uprising. The paper also reports that the United States has said it has captured a suspected ringleader of the 2012 attack on the US diplomatic compound in Benghazi, Libya, that killed 4 Americans, including the US ambassador, and ignited a political firestorm in Washington. From Saudi Arabia, the Arab News reports that US Treasury Secretary Jacob Lew said that developments in Iraq, where militants have seized swathes of the country, emphasize the need to combat terror financing. The paper also reports that the World Health Organization said a surge in cases of the deadly MERS virus has receded, but countries must maintain vigilance for the pilgrimages to Saudi Arabia, worst hit by the disease. The Jerusalem Post reports that Major General Nitzan Alon said that the IDF is waging a stiff and protracted campaign to weaken Hamas, as soldiers expanded their battle with Hamas beyond Hebron and into Jenin yesterday. The paper also reports that Knesset Speaker Yuli Edelstein spoke out against member of the Knesset Hanin Zoabi for saying the kidnappers of 3 yeshiva students last weekend are not terrorists, but stopped short of removing her parliamentary immunity despite demands from dozens of members of Knessets. From Lebanon, the Daily Star reports that Parliament Speaker Nabi Berri postponed a 7th session to elect a new president for Lebanon as the rival political parties, who have not agreed on a consensus candidate to replace former President Michel Sleiman, failed to secure the needed quorum. The paper also reports that Prime Minister Tamam Salam will visit Kuwait over the weekend to encourage Arab tourists to come to Lebanon after stability and calm have been restored. And from the UAE, the Gulf News reports that fighting erupted at the northern approaches to Baghdad yesterday as Iraq accused Saudi Arabia of promoting genocide by backing militants who have seized swathes of its territory in an offensive the UN says threatens its very existence. The paper also reports that 8 people were killed yesterday when Pakistani riot police armed with assault rifles clashed with followers of a prominent preacher and anti-government critic in Lahore. Now let's take a look at the top Middle East news from UK papers. The Telegraph leads its Middle East news reporting that US commandos have captured Ahmed Abu Khatala, one of the alleged leaders of the 2012 assault on the American consulate in Benghazi. The paper says the special operations raid is a major success for the White House, which has long fought Republican criticism for not preventing the attack or finding its perpetrators. The Guardian reports that Islamist militants have attacked Iraq's largest oil refinery in the city of Baiji, 155 miles north of Baghdad, as Iran raised the prospect of direct military intervention to protect Shia holy sites. The paper says the refinery accounts for more than a quarter of the country's entire refining capacity, all of which goes toward domestic consumption, petrol, cooking oil and fuel for power stations. The Independent reports that David Cameron is to meet with his most senior security advisors today to discuss Britain's role in the ongoing crisis in Iraq. The Prime Minister will chair a meeting of the National Security Council in discussions that follow on from Foreign Secretary William Hague's 2 statements to the Commons on Iraq this week. Now let's take a look at the top Middle East news in international papers. China's Global Times leads its Middle East news reporting that a massive military operation to retrieve 3 Jewish teens allegedly abducted by militants in the West Bank last week continued after Israeli forces arrested 65 Palestinians in overnight raids across the West Bank. The paper says 51 of those arrested were Hamas members who were previously incarcerated in Israeli jails and released in exchange for an Israeli soldier in 2011. And finally, Germany's Deutsche Welle reports that an Al Jazeera journalist who was detained in Egypt without charges for 10 months has been freed from custody in Egypt. Abdullah al-Shami, who had been on hunger strike since January, was released due to health concerns, with his family saying in May that the 26-year-old had shed 40 kilograms since he began the hunger strike. And for more updates, please visit levant.tv. Thanks for watching. Be sure to join us again tomorrow. Bye for now.